Sanibonani Mzansi, Jumleng, warm greetings to all citizens at home and across our beautiful country. Today we witness history, not only for South Africa, but for Africa as a whole. For the first time ever, the G20 Summit, the world's most influential economic gathering, was hosted on African soil. And President Cyril Ramaphosa closed this monumental summit with a message that echoed across nations. A new world is rising, and Africa is at the center of it. Mzansi Citizen brings you the full breakdown of this defining moment. Let's go deeper into the speech that is already shaping global conversations.
In fact, the entire year, meetings have taken place in our own country and elsewhere in the world, including at the United Nations, supporting the presidency of South Africa of the G20. And we've met in the face of significant challenges and demonstrated our ability to come together, even in the times of great difficulty, to pursue a better world. South Africa's presidency marks the first time, as we have said, that the G20 has been hosted and held on African soil. We are truly honored and humbled by that, not only as South Africans, but as Africans as a whole. Recognizing the importance of this milestone, we have sought to place Africa's growth and development interests at the heart of the G20's agenda. The greatest opportunity for prosperity in the 21st century lies in Africa. Harnessing that opportunity will require a rather strong partnership between Africa and the G20, and indeed between Africa and the rest of the world. Recognizing our interconnectedness as a global community of nations, we have called for an end to conflicts and wars around the globe and for a just and comprehensive and lasting peace. This summit has taken place at a crucial time as calls around the world grow louder for progress on the imperatives of our time, to end poverty in all its forms and ramifications, to reduce inequality within and amongst countries, and to take urgent action to combat climate change. This year, we have recognized the growing debt burden that is faced by many developing economy countries as a major obstacle to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. The G20 has pledged to extend support to low and middle income countries as they confront debt vulnerabilities. Together, we must create a virtuous cycle of reduced debt, higher public investment, and more rapid and inclusive economic growth. When we become more successful, all of us, then the whole world becomes successful. When we began our presidency, we pledged to mobilize the G20 to strengthen disaster resilience and response. Climate-induced natural disasters spare no country. Disasters know no borders. But their toll is heaviest on those without the means to recover and to rebuild. We therefore called on G20 leaders to urge the global community to scale up post-disaster reconstruction. In this regard, South Africa introduced the high-level voluntary principles for investing in disaster risk reduction and encouraged international collaboration to strengthen investment in preventing and responding to disasters. We've made progress in mobilizing finance for a just energy transition. Climate change touches every nation, but it impacts on everyone unevenly. That is why we have together pledged to increase the quality and the quantity of climate finance to developing economies, to strengthen multilateral development banks, to support country platforms like the Just Energy Transition Partnership, and to unlock private capital. We reaffirmed our dedication to energy security, affordability and universal access, and the importance of supporting developing economies in their transition to low carbon emissions. We recognize the need for deep, rapid, and sustained reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and the need to substantially scale up investment and climate finance from all sources. During this summit, we reaffirmed our support for the G20 Critical Minerals Framework, a cooperative blueprint to ensure that critical minerals resources drive prosperity and sustainable development across the globe. Our presidency coincided with the end of the first cycle of the G20 presidencies. Following the mandate given to our presidency at the 2024 Rio de Janeiro Summit, we undertook the G20 at 20 review, drawing on the diverse perspectives of participating members and guest countries as well. It is our hope that the recommendations of the review will serve as a helpful guide for the G20 to ensure that it remains fit for purpose in an ever-changing world. In fact, the indicative report already says that the G20's existence should continue as it serves a good purpose in giving guidance to the economic well-being of the world. At the heart of our presidency lies a conviction that the G20 must act boldly and act together to create an environment of inclusive growth, an environment of reduced inequality, an environment which will support sustainable development. South Africa has used this presidency to place the priorities of Africa and the Global South firmly at the heart of the G20 agenda. Building on the developmental agenda of previous presidencies in Indonesia, in India, and Brazil, we have prioritized the issues that matter most to developing economies. And in executing our task as a G20 president, we learned a lot from what Indonesia did, what India did, and what Brazil did. So in many ways, what we see having unfolded here was based on the foundations that those three countries of the Global South put in place. The G20 South Africa Summit Leaders' Declaration is more than words. It is a commitment to concrete actions that will improve the lives of people in every part of the world. Our agreement on a declaration during this summit demonstrates the value of the G20 as a forum that can facilitate joint action on issues of shared concern. Shared concern not only for the leaders, but shared concern for the peoples of the world. More than that, it reaffirms our renewed commitment to multilateral cooperation and our recognition that our shared goals outweigh our differences. Together, we must accelerate progress towards the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations and the Pact for the Future. We have laid the foundation of solidarity. Now we must build the walls of justice and the roof of prosperity. Let us move forward together, demonstrating to the world that we do have the capacity to confront and overcome the world's challenges through partnerships across society, and by remembering our common humanity, we can create a more secure, a more just, and a more prosperous world. And together, we can ensure that no one is left behind. I now say that this gavel of this G20 Summit formally closes this summit and now moves on to the next president of the G20, which is the United States, where we shall see each other again next year. The summit is therefore closed.
The year of global engagement. President Ramaphosa began by reminding the world that South Africa's G20 presidency was not symbolic, it was active, engaged, and globally recognized. Meetings took place across South Africa, at the UN, and at key global platforms as nations rallied behind our leadership. Despite global instability, wars, conflicts, climate disasters, economic pressures, the world stood together on African soil, proving that unity is possible even in the hardest times. 2. Africa at the heart of the G20 agenda. For the first time since the existence of the G20, Africa was not a guest. Africa was the host. Africa was the agenda. Africa was the future. Ramaphosa declared boldly. The greatest opportunity for prosperity in the 21st century lies in Africa. This presidency placed African development at the center of global politics. African economies. African minerals. African energy transition. African youth. African industrialization. South Africa made it clear. Africa is no longer the periphery, it is the powerhouse. 3. Calling for global peace and ending war. In a world troubled by conflict, Ramaphosa did not shy away. He called for peace, real peace, across the globe. He emphasized, no development can happen in war. No growth can happen in conflict. Humanity cannot thrive under division. His message was clear. The world must choose unity over chaos. 4. Ending poverty and inequality. This summit occurred at a critical time, as poverty and inequality deepen across many nations. Ramaphosa pushed the G20 to commit to ending extreme poverty, reducing inequality between and within countries, creating a fairer global economic system. He stressed that the global south should not remain trapped in economic hardship while the wealthy grow richer. 5. The global debt crisis. Developing countries are suffocating under debt. Ramaphosa warned the world that this burden is strangling progress. The G20 pledged support to low and middle-income countries to overcome debt vulnerabilities, declining investment, economic stagnation. He called for a virtuous cycle of reduced debt, more public investment, faster and more inclusive growth. When we become more successful, he said, the world becomes successful. 6. Climate change, disaster preparedness and energy transition. Ramaphosa issued a powerful warning. Climate disasters know no borders. South Africa pushed the world to increase climate finance, disaster reconstruction support, disaster prevention investment. He introduced the high-level voluntary principles for investing in disaster risk reduction, a major step in global cooperation. On energy transition, he emphasized energy affordability, energy access, just transition for developing countries, mobilizing private and public finance. South Africa reaffirmed that climate justice must be fair and inclusive, not forced on poor nations. 7. Africa's critical minerals, a blueprint for prosperity. Ramaphosa highlighted the G20 critical minerals framework as a global game-changer. Africa holds the minerals that fuel the world's future: lithium, platinum, nickel, cobalt, manganese, rare earths. The message was unmistakable. These minerals must create African jobs. These minerals must build African industries. These minerals must generate African wealth, not just foreign profit. 8. Strengthening global governance and multilateralism. Ramaphosa emphasized that the world needs unity, not fragmentation. The G20 South Africa Leaders Declaration is not just words, it is a commitment to multilateral cooperation, shared economic growth, joint problem solving, accelerating the UN's 2030 SDGs. He affirmed that despite differences, the world still believes in working together. 9. A legacy built on the Global South. South Africa built on the foundations laid by Indonesia, India, and Brazil, the rising powers of the Global South. This was not a Western-led agenda. It was a Southern-led blueprint for fairness, growth, and justice. The G20 review confirmed that the forum remains essential for global well-being. 10. Closing the summit, passing the gavel. Finally, with dignity, Ramaphosa closed the summit and passed the G20 gavel to the United States, the next president of the G20. The message: Africa has led. Africa has spoken. Africa has risen. Mzansi, this was more than a summit. This was a turning point. For the first time in history, the world gathered on African soil not to lecture, not to observe, but to listen. South Africa placed Africa's priorities at the heart of global leadership.
It looks like
justice,
they are now being joined by
peace,
invited guests,
sustainable development,
we may just stand correction there,
economic
but it looks
fairness,
like they are being joined by
a world where no
invited
one
guests,
is left behind.
the G20 members
Ramaphosa's
would be
closing
21,
message is clear.
given that one of them
We
is
have laid
not
the
here.
foundation of solidarity.
The members,
Now we must build the walls of
the
justice
team
and the
that
roof of
President
prosperity.
from the
The
African
world is
continent
watching
mainly,
Africa.
to
The
really
world
show
is
support.
listening
if you
to
look at the theme
Africa.
of South Africa,
And Africa is ready.
solidarity, equality,
This
and
is Mzansi
sustainability.
Citizen.
So these
Your
are
voice,
some of the things we see
your country,
being
your
expressed
power.
quite literally.
If
So
you
that's
believe
exactly
Africa's time
what
has
they
come,
want to
like this
project to the
video.
world.
If you believe
And
Africa deserves a seat at the table, follow, subscribe, and comment below.
Has a strong show.
Do you
from the
think
African
Africa's
continent.
leadership
Yes.
will change global
and I think
politics?
From day one, that was
Until
the
next
stance
time,
to
stay informed,
continue
stay
on the
patriotic,
Global
and stay
South,
Mzansi.
mandate. Yes. And continue.